Hello and welcome to Courtside on GametimeCT. I am Scott Erickson, the girls basketball writer, and we are joined, as always, by Joe Morelli. Joe, how are you? You survived conference finals. Joe, you're muted there, bud.
Run to the Sun, it starts what? Actually, it really started with 2 playdowns, but it starts in earnest tomorrow on Friday. So
yeah, that's right. We are going. It's March. We're going to talk about the conference finals briefly, and then Joe and I are going to get into every single state tournament bracket. We're going to break it down. We're going to pick winners. We're going to give you some bulletin board material. It's going to be a great time. Before we get started, as always, please like and subscribe to the GametimeCT YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram, where we have all videos from all the games. There's highlights from all the conference finals up there if you want to go check it out. And as always, go to GametimeCT.com for all of our stories, all of our weekly polls, all of the stuff that we wrote about the tournament and the outlooks heading into that, as well as Joe and I just did a quarter-century team for the boys and for the girls. So go see who the best players have been the last 25 years in Connecticut. Those people are really enjoying those as they read through them. All right, Joe, it's time for the shoot around. Let's talk about the conference tournaments here. Take me through what happened on the boys' side first.
Well, we'll tell you what, we had a couple of sellouts. The CCC sold out at the University of Hartford. The SEC sold out at Quinnipiac's M&T Bank Arena. But I tell you what, East Hartford in the CCC, they win their first league championship since 1998. They beat East Catholic in the semifinals. They beat Windsor in the finals. Kahari Walker, 22 points, 13 of them in the fourth quarter. You know, East Hartford has had some good teams. They went to the finals in 2017, lost to Hill House. I would not have picked them, and I still don't know if I would pick them. But you know what? They played great. They're going to probably move up in the poll, that next one that comes out. This team is very good, and they're going to be very dangerous as a 3 seed in Division II. In the SEC, you have Notre Dame and West Haven. The drive for 5 is complete. Abdu Torre with 28 points. They beat Fairfield Prep 73-51. Prep played great in the first half, 6 3-pointers, made it a game. But, you know, I think Notre Dame wore them down. Defensively, they were a lot tougher in the second half. It's really kind of hard to stay with this team for 4 quarters. They've yet to lose in state. And then they've won 92 of their last 93 games in the SEC. It's been a dominant performance.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is. The FCIAC, you saw a repeat last night. Staples in the FCIAC defeated Richfield 62-48. It was a rematch of last year's final, the one that you were at. Mahoney Arena is a great place to have it. I hope they continue to have it there. 4 guys in double figures for Staples. Sammy Klatchko was the MVP, tournament MVP. He's obviously the floor leader. He missed this tournament last year because he had the broken wrist. He's back. He's healthy. Him, Mason Tobias, and the fellas, they're going to be very tough to beat in Division I, and they are the top seed. Woodland, I mean, we've talked about them, Scott. People told me at the beginning of the year, again, they were going to be the NBL champs. I was suspect. Obviously, I was wrong. This team and Staples are the only undefeated teams. They hammered the defending champion Waterbury career in the final. John Napiello had 25 points. This is going to be a very interesting team in Division IV as the top seed. I mean, this is a team that's never been even a thought. And here they are playing for league and state championships. It's been pretty amazing. Game you were at on Monday, Scott, Notre Dame Prep, 3-peats in the SWC. Jameer Reed was the most valuable player. Josh Charlotte ran the show. They beat Bunnell again. The thing about Notre Dame Prep is, again, they haven't lost since they lost to Kobe in mid-January. They went up to Hoop Hall and won their game there, and they've been very good ever since. They're going to be really tough to beat in Division I. They've not beaten Notre Dame or West Haven in this tournament. They're on opposite sides of the bracket this year. Abbott Tech, your CTC champion. They beat Grasso Tech on a buzzer beater by Christian Morelli. No, he is not related to me that I know of. But I tell you what, it's a heck of a shot, a heck of a win. It looked like a really good game. He had only 15 points, but you know what? He had the 3 biggest ones. And Abbott Tech is your CTC champion. Speaking of repeats, O-Line does it again in the Shoreline. O-Line, they handed Ellington their only loss this year about a couple of weeks ago. And this team was up 33-16 at halftime. 4 guys in double figures, led by Will McKeever with 17 points. This is a very good team. They were in the finals of Division V last year. Now they're in Division IV, the 2nd seed. You can see Woodland and them on a possible collision course, which we'll talk about later. Speaking of collision courses, Ellington is now in Division III. Ellington was your Division IV champion last year. They had a 46-game winning streak, which was longest in the state. Again, they lost it to O-Line, but they've been able to rebound in the NCCC tournament and were able to win it and beat Granby handily for the 3rd time. They did it without their best player, Jack Curtis. He's got a knee injury. The likelihood is he will not be playing in the state tournament, but he had his teammates in Nichols and Fieldhouse both had 19 points. This is going to be a very good team, obviously, as the 1 seed in Division III. We go east to the ECC. And, you had 2 champions here. They play 2 divisions. They're the only one who really does that. You had Fitch in Division I. The first time they've won the ECC championship since 2004. And Griswold repeated in Division II. Griswold's got a bunch of shooters. They had a buzzer beater last year and they got to the semifinals. Fitch obviously was a finalist last year in Division III. They got led by Xavier Good. This is a nice team, and now they're in Division II as a high seed. So we'll see how they do there. The Berkshire League, Chappaq Valley was not playing really well throughout the year. They had a couple of 3-game losing streaks, Scott, and Nanawac was the regular season champion, but Chappaq found a way to repeat in the Berkshire. Even James Kirsten, who recently went over 2,000 points, he had 27 in this game. Tegan Savick had a layup with about 5.5 seconds left. That was the difference in this game, a 2-point win for Chappaq. Again, that's one of the other teams that went 27-0 last year, Division V. Now they're in Division IV. And that talk about your dangerous floating seeds in the bracket. They're the 12th seed in Division IV. It should be interesting. And for all those old heads out there, Hartford Public is a league champion. Well, it's not the CCC, and it's not Camby and Kendrick Moore, but it is a bunch of guys who have done well in this new Greater Hartford Conference, the former crawl. Jaden Booth with 29 points for Hartford Public. They beat SMSA, which I guess they were ahead the entire game. They're in Division V, so it'll be very interesting. But again, it's been a while since Hartford Public has done anything. In fact, I had forgotten. They were in the finals in 2008. They lost to Stratford High School in Class M back at Central Connecticut, I believe, when they still hosted. So it's nice to see Public because it's been a while. I guess it's not the same conference, but you know what? A win is a win, and they have a trophy to prove it. And it was a very exciting league tournament. We could only hope the state tournament is as good. Scott, what do we have on the girls' side?
I have to say, the Abbott Tech, East Hartford, that's why you play conference tournaments. For those moments.
And the fact that the SCC sold out. He sold out. Old Saybrook sold out for the Shoreline. This is the reason why, if people say it doesn't matter, well, tell the people who went to those places and sold it out. So it does matter.
All right, on the girls' side, let's take a look at what happened here. Northwest Catholic, the 3-time state champion, finally breaks through, finally triumphs in the CCC, defeats Rocky Hill, who's had a fantastic year themselves. Abby Casper, Maeve Stoughton, Zoe Canning, Samantha Casper. We know all of them by now. And again, we talk about why these tournaments are important. This is a team that's won 3 straight state championships, and you saw how excited they were to finally win the CCC. That's a really tough conference in girls basketball. Shout out to the Lions for getting that done. Now they can focus on going for 4 in the state field into the NVL. You had a surprise a little bit this year. People said Woodland's going to win the NVL, and I was hearing things about Seymour and Ansonia, and I said, look, Holy Cross, St. Paul, they always win the NVL. Ansonia makes their first NVL final. They lose a close one to Seymour. Both of these teams are going in as high seeds in Division III, which we'll talk about in a little while. But what a great season for public schools in the NVL, and for Seymour to beat Ansonia in the championship. I'm sure that was a great environment up there. I think our guy, Kevin Roberts, was up at that one. I haven't gotten up to the NVL yet this year. And then we move over to the CTC, and we had back-to-back champions here. Shania Dunbar, Kaner Tech. They get it done for the second straight season, win a close one here. You know, great season for those girls. And again, the conference tournaments really mean a lot to these teams that, you know, Kaner Tech can win some games in states. I'm not saying they can't, but these games are important to them. That Avid Tech moment for that boy, that kid is never going to forget that. It's a moment of his life. Last night in the FCIAC, Joe, I was there. The girls' game was played ahead of the boys' game, Mahoney Arena. Such a fantastic venue. Greenwich came out, won their first FCIAC championship since 1988. Zuri Faison had 27 points. Maddie Utzlinger had 21 points. They played great. They took care of Staples. They almost got knocked off by Ward in the semis, but they got past the Mustangs, and then they, handled the Wreckers pretty well. Won that first FCIAC championship. Now we'll talk about them later in states in Division I, see if they can make a run there. In the SWC, that was also a boy-girl doubleheader. I love these doubleheaders. We have the 2 finals in the same night. It's really great for the crowds. So Notre Dame swept that night. The girls won the first championship. The late championship. They played the boys' game first. The girls' game, they won. They won the SWC with no seniors in the team. Colby McRae, a sophomore, had a great game. Layla Rinaldi, who is the daughter of Maria Conlon, hit a shot just over half court to end the half. And then she hit another buzzer beater to end the third quarter. Those 2 shots were probably the biggest shots of the game. And Notre Dame took care of Bethel. Great job by Bethel to get back to this game. They lost a ton of players after being in the state final last year. And Dan Scopino got them back into the championship game. Remarkable run by Bethel, who is also in the Division II state tournament, which we will talk about in a little bit. Sacred Heart in the SEC. I mean, this is getting to be the tune now. Once Hamden's run was over here in the SEC, it's been Sacred Heart's conference to win. Sheehan did a really good job against them. Sheehan led in this game for a little bit and held them down scoring-wise. I think you see this a lot when you get into these conference tournaments. These teams know each other so well. This is the 3rd time that Sheehan's playing Sacred Heart this year. They're both excellent teams, both really well-coached teams with good players. So they know each other so well, and these games get really, really tight, tighter than they might be when they go into the state tournament. Both these teams I expect to play well in the state tournament. Sliding out to the east, we had an upset. First, Ledyard got knocked off in the semis. I thought they were going to win this thing. This is one of the ones I got wrong. I got most of these right. I think I got this in the SWC wrong. But New London, great job by the Whalers. Coming back, they upset Woodstock in the final out there at Mohegan Sun. Awesome job by the Whalers. I'm interested to see how they do. They have Nariah Dudley, who is the sister of Nalise Dudley, who's now playing at Sacred Heart and was our GametimeCT MVP a couple years ago. Over in the NCC, Coventry goes back-to-back. They are led by a group of sophomores who have now won back-to-back NCCC championships. They are going to try to win another state championship. They are building something very, very special over there. They're in Division III. They may not get the recognition that everyone else gets playing in the bigger conferences, but Coventry is for real. They are ranked in the GametimeCT poll. They were the only D3 team previously ranked in the D3 poll. We'll see if Seymour can slide up now, but Coventry having an awesome run with a strong core of sophomore players. The Berkshire League. Thomaston is back on top in the Berkshire League. Northwestern won last 2 years with Matty Tulpa. Thomaston is back. They beat Lakeview. Thomaston and Lakeview have played 3 great games already this season, and the possibility exists that they could meet again in the state championship later on. We'll talk about that, see if that could work out. All right, the Shoreline. Morgan takes their first Shoreline championship since 2015. Sadie Pasante, Emma Tuner, Morgan wins the Shoreline, kind of going away. I think they were up like 20-0 in that game and never really looked back. Caitlin Woods has done a fantastic job with them. They're a high seed in the state tournament as well. And then in the GHC, you were talking about the Old Heads and with Hartford Public. Speaking of Old Heads, Weaver winning a conference title. That is awesome. They win the first ever GHC championship. They're led by a freshman. Awesome job by Weaver to win that championship. And I'd love to see those schools coming back and doing well again. It's great. And again, this is why we play the conference tournaments, so that teams like this have these moments, because not everyone's going to have moments in states. And to win your conference is a big deal. It was even a big deal in Northwest Catholic, like I said, Joe.
And Sadie Pasante, pretty damn good soccer player too. So I think she's player of the year in 2 sports. That's pretty
player
impressive.
of the year in 2 sports. That is very rare. I'd have to go back and look through all the sports, and maybe girls have done it in field hockey, lacrosse, stuff like that. But I don't remember a basketball player being a soccer player of the year. The girl at North Branford, whose name is escaping me, may have been a couple years ago, but I forget her name, and I apologize to her, but it's lost in the wind at this point. All right, the top 10 polls are going to come out tomorrow. So these will be the top 10 polls leading into the state tournament. Those will be released tomorrow, Friday, if you're listening. And then they will be, our next poll will not be until the end of the state tournament, which will be the final polls, the final number 1 teams in the state. All right, Joe, it's time. Are you ready? Loose? Are you ready?
I'm ready, Scott. Let's go.
This is what the people are here for, Joe.
Yeah.
This is what the people are here for.
The 2 most hated men in CIAC basketball right here.
It is time to look at all the state tournaments. We are going to break down the brackets. We're going to pick our final 4. We're going to tell you about our dark horses, and we are going to predict winners, Joe. First up, Joe, Division 5 boys. Let's take a look at the brackets.
Well, we start with Stafford. I mean, this is a team that, kind of has flown under the radar in the NCCC. It's kind of hard not to when you have Ellington winning every single game. Stafford led by Colin Tozier, leading scorer, 1,700 points in his career. They get a first-round bye. A number of teams got buys in this bracket. They get the winner of Old Saybrook and International, followed by at the 9 seed is Vinyl Tech out of the CTC. Windsor locks the 24 seed here, also out of the NCCC. East Granby, the 8 seed, gets Capital Prep, led by Sarah Gillespie, who's got 53 points. He's got 45 points in the game. They had to win their last game to get in. Capital Prep is dangerous as a 25. For the most part, has struggled, but, Gillespie can win a game by himself. Northwestern, out of the Berkshire League, is your 12 seed. They will face and host Canton out of the NCCC in the opening round. You also have Montville and O'Brien Tech to complete the top half of the bracket. Montville will be hosting O'Brien Tech. The winner gets Coventry. And then you have the bottom half of the bracket. Killingworth out of the Shoreline is your top seed in the bottom half. They will get the winner. They get a first-round bye. They get the winner of Whitney Tech and Hale Ray. Also, you have Terryville, the number 10 seed, and they will host East Hampton out of the Shoreline Conference, your 23. Then you have Putnam as your 11 seed. They will host Thomaston in the opening round. Winner gets North Branford. Plainfield also had a bye. They will get the winner of Terryville and East Hampton. And then you have Valley Regional and ComSci to complete the one part of the bracket in Division 5. You also have Hartford Public as your 3 seed, your GHC champion, and they also got a first-round bye. My final four in Division 5, number 1 Stafford, number 5 Coventry, number 7 Plainfield, and number 3 Hartford Public. Dark horse to me is Plainfield out of the ECC. My champion, I'm going chalk. Stafford over Hartford Public.
I like it, Joe. Put it on the bulletin board, everybody.
Yep.
All right, let's move over to the girls Division 5 bracket here. Let's zoom in, see what we got in the Lakeview region. 2 Berkshire team leagues have the regions here as the top 2 seeds. Let's look at Lakeview here. As we zoom in, Lakeview has the bye. They will face the winner of Westbrook and St. Bernard, however we like to say that. And that the winner of that will go to Lakeview and play in Litchfield. Lakeview, of course, has only had a team for 2 years because they have formed, Litchfield and Wamogo coming together. And moving down the bracket there, we have Wheeler. Coggins is going to visit Wheeler. That's quite a drive for them, but could be an very interesting matchup there. SMA and LS Tech have seen each other before. East Granby and Wyndham Tech. And then Innovation is a very interesting team. Myra Rodriguez, Simber Sutton. I'm interested to see if Innovation can make a run. Their boys team made a run a few years ago. I kind of like the draw that Innovation has got here. Hale Ray is tough. Parish Hill is tough, but Innovation's played Parish Hill this year and beaten them. So I kind of like Innovation and Lakeview to move through here. And let's slide down to the bottom half of this here. All right. Thomaston is the top seed here. The number 2 seed overall, but the top seed in this region. And Cromwell and Portland, who are very close. They play each other in the Shoreline League all the time. I don't know what to make of this game, but the winner of that has to go to Thomaston. Montville has to go to Whitney Tech. There could be an upset there. Montville out of the ECC could pull that one off. North Branford's strong here. They get Goodwin Tech to start, and then they move on and could play the Montville or Whitney Tech. I kind of like North Branford to eventually play Thomaston in the quarterfinals here. HK, I could see them moving through this, getting through Gilbert, and then Housatonics at the bottom of that, Internationals at the bottom of that. HK as the 11th seed is very interesting to move through here. So let's look at who I have for my final 4 in Division 5. I like Lakeview and Innovation to move out of that top bracket. I like Thomaston and Haddam Killingworth to move out of the bottom bracket. Watch out for North Branford, Cromwell, but I like those 4 teams. My championship game in Division 5, I like Lakeview over Thomaston, a reverse of what happened in the Berkshire League Championship, but I'm going with Lakeview to win their first ever state championship. Joe, what do we got in Division 4 boys?
Well, we've got one of the 2 remaining undefeated teams in Woodland. They are your top seed here, and they get the winner of Bullard Havens and Watertown. Watertown's had a decent year in the NBL. The old 2 kid has been very good, and they should be able to advance. But the problem is they're facing a team that they've lost to a few times already this year, and I would think Woodland advances. Griswold and Morgan. Griswold, we talked about, your ECC Division II champion. Woodland better be careful in a possible quarterfinal round matchup. And that you also have Aerospace out of that GHC hosting New Milford out of the SWC. And there's that Chappaqua Valley, your 2-time Berkshire League champion. They host Ellis Tech. Cromwell better be careful. The Shoreline finalists would get Chappaqua in the second round. Granby Memorial lost to Ellington in the NCCC final. They get the winner of Lakeview and Caner Tech, and I like Granby to move on. On to the bottom half of the bracket, where we have Old Line. You're now your 2-time Shoreline champion, the only team to beat Ellington. They host the winner of Ledyard and Barlow. I like Barlow in a mini upset here to win at Ledyard and go on to face Old Line. Then you have Stonington, the finalist in ECC Division II, lost to Griswold. They host Berlin. That's an intriguing matchup. Berlin out of the CCC. Abbott Tech with Christian Morelli. Again, no relation, but, he's a hero. He's the riding high as your CTC champions. the 7 seed, Abbott Tech, they host Wethersfield, also out of the CCC. And then you have St. Paul out of the NBL, hosting Suffield out of the NCCC. Number 6 seed, Wyndham Tech, led by Brady Marsh, now the school's all-time leading scorer. They face Amistad, one of the remaining independents, based out of New Haven. They got to make a long trip to Wyndham Tech. That's a tough and tall order. And then speaking of name value, you have Bassick, who has struggling on hard times, have returned to the state tournament. It's not the Bassick of old, but they're back on the way up. They got to go to Ansonia. Ansonia's had a decent year. I would think that's going to be up and down. I think Ansonia moves on. The winner gets Nanawag. You see how they have a very good triumvirate trio of guards led by Brady Herman. I'm very curious to see how Nanawag reacts after losing in the Berkshire League final. My Final Four is getting very dusty here. There's a lot of chalk going on, but I mean, it's really hard. It's very hard it's not hard to go. I went with Woodland. I debated on this for a long time. I stayed with Cromwell. I would not be surprised in one bit if Chappaqua gets their O-line as the 2 seed, and I went with Wyndham Tech, the 6 seed, to the Final Four. Again, the dark horse here is Chappaqua. They're very dangerous. James Kirsten doesn't want to graduate just yet. He might be able to win a couple games. You never know. I do like Woodland to win their first state championship, to get to their first state final, and to beat O-line, the 1 versus 2 advance to the final.
I love it, Joe. All right, girls D4. I mean, the girls D4, I spent more time looking at this D4 bracket, going through schedules. It is by far the hardest bracket to pick. There's a lot of teams that could move through here. There's a lot of parity. When the CIAC kind of set up these new divisions, I think this is what they were looking for, is a bracket of smaller schools where a lot of teams can bust through here and win. Morgan's the top seed. They're the Shoreline champion. They can get the winner of Woodland Naugatuck. And as they move forward there, could end up facing Nanawag if you look at a quarterfinal matchup that kind of sits ahead there. I like Nanawag a little bit, although Canton Nanawag, whoever wins that game and gets to Morgan, I think that quarterfinal could be a very strong quarterfinal and a huge test for Morgan as we see if they can move on to the semis. Bolton has been in the tournament before. Let's look number 28, Harding. Love seeing Harding back in the tournament. Well, as we move down, Bassick will be there too, but Harding's back in the tournament for the first time in 5 or 6 years. It's been a while for Harding. Bullard Havens is right here too. And then Prince Tech is the 4 seed here. Kind of moving through the bottom of that bracket, I wouldn't be surprised if Bolton kind of slides through there and comes up. But it would be hard to see anyone getting past Morgan. I just don't see anyone moving past Morgan in this region. I like Morgan to move through. Let's slide down to the bottom and see what we're cooking with here. This is the Wilcox Tech region. East Hampton, there's Bassick. I would be interested to see if Bassick can win this game. I don't know if they can go to East Hampton and win a state game. They haven't been in the tournament for a long time either. Griswold is having a really great season. Stonington, obviously, out of the ECC. I kind of like Stonington to advance here and move up. Interesting, right below them is Laurelton Hall. Laurelton Hall has a pathway here at number 11 to move through this bracket. They have Northwestern, which is a tough team. I think a lot of people are going to overlook Laurelton Hall, but when you look at their schedule, they played a really, kind of a tough SEC schedule. They're a school of choice. They're in Division 4. We can talk about that another time, maybe. But Laurelton Hall, I think, has a way here to come through this bracket. Now, Kaner Tech is the interesting piece here. Shania Dunbar, they just won the CTC. If they can get through here, and then we have a tech school that could end up in the quarterfinal game, and then at the bottom of this thing here, we have Weaver. I'd be very interested to see if Weaver can, one, get by Weston, and then get by either Waterford or Career, who are both, out of a little bigger conferences. Like I said, this bracket is so wide open. It was so hard to pick. I went through so many schedules and everything, looking at all kinds of scenarios. And the Final Four I ended up with, like I said, there's dark horses in Nanawag and Weaver and Canton. The Final Four I ended up with was Morgan, Bolton, Stonington, and I went with Laurelton Hall. I know Laurelton Hall in 11. No one's talking about them out of the SEC, but they're down here in Division 4 out of a really strong conference. I'm going to pick them to make a run. Do I think that could be Weaver? Yeah, I do think that could also be Weaver, but I like that. And for my championship game here, I like Morgan. I like the Huskies to beat Stonington in the Division 4 championship. I said at the beginning, I was really not confident in picking Division 4, but I am confident in picking Morgan to win Division 4. The rest of it, I don't know if I got any of that right, but I really, really like Morgan to win here. They're a very strong team. We talked about them earlier with Sadie Basante and Emma Tuner, and Caitlin Woods does such a fantastic job. All right, Joe, Division 3 boys.
Well, you talked about Division 4 girls being tough to pick. This was my hardest bracket to go through because it always seems to be because there's a lot of mixture of teams that are dropping down in size or moving up or that have good years. And then Ellington is the team to beat, but, Ellington without Jack Curtis, if he doesn't play because he suffered a knee injury in the NCCC tournament, that makes the road harder. They won an MCCC convincingly without him. And the interesting thing is, they could face Bridgeport Central in the second round for the second straight year, the same 2 seeds. That game was in Division 4 last year. It was a 1-point game. I think Bridgeport Central is going to be ready for them. I think they beat Career. I almost went Central. I still think Ellington at home. I think they find a way to move on there. But it's a very dangerous game and a team that's going to want some revenge. E.O. Smith out of the CCC, number 9 seed. They host Amity. Long road trip for Amity. I think it's a tough spot for the Spartans. Killingly, the 8th seed, they were a semifinalist in ECC Division 1. They host Brantford. Brantford, SEC. Again, another long road trip. I think Killingly moves on there. Naugatuck out of the NBL hosts Ram out of the CCC. Again, one of those matchups are not really sure. Naugatuck was up and down. Ram was up and down. I think in those cases, home team usually wins. Grasso Tech, the team that lost to Abitech in that great CTC final, they host Weston. Howell Julius Washington, that program's all-time leading scorer, and the boys rebound from that tough, difficult loss. Weston, again, play a good schedule in the SWC. Obviously, a lot of people might go Weston. I think Grasso Tech is going to find a way here. And then there's Weaver. Weaver out of the GHC. They host Middletown. I like Middletown to pull the upset here. In the bottom half, and then the winner will get Stafford. In the bottom half of the bracket, you have North Haven. North Haven won the first 18, 19 games, then lost at home to Woodland. They kind of rebounded from there, then lost to Fairfield Prep in the SEC semifinals. They're your 2 seed. They're having a great year. They get the winner of Woodstock Academy and Torrington. Torrington has been up and down, so has Woodstock. North Haven, I like to think, with a home game or 2, can at least make a little bit of a run here. Bethel, again, that was a team that early on was playing well in the SWC. They've struggled toward the second half of the year. They face a decent Simsbury team. I think, again, another long road trip. I think Bethel finds a way to win. Another intriguing matchup, which will be for football as well. St. Joe's goes to Shelton. Shelton has had a 15-5 regular season. They won at Xavier. They lost to New Canaan in overtime. I think Shelton figures it out, wins the opening round here. And then obviously you have a possible matchup with Bethel, and Shelton would host that in the second round. New Fairfield, another team out of the SWC who's beaten Stanford. They are hosting Lewis Mills and Tommy DiNunzo. Difficult matchup. I see that being a very close game as well. Will be out of the NBL, lost in the opening round of their tournament to Crosby. Can they rebound against Bristol Central? I think they will. Sheehan, in Division 4 last year, as a 23 seed, I believe, they advanced to the final and lost to Ellington. Can they do it again? I think they might be able to. They'll beat South Windsor in the opening round. The winner gets SMSA, who lost in their conference final to Hartford Public. So it's getting dusty in here again. No, I do like Ellington to get to the Final Four. Stratford is the 4 seed in this division. I like Stratford. They have a balanced team. They've had some quality wins and some quality losses. I think Stratford will find a way with the home games to get to the semifinals. I will take North Haven, and I will take Wilby. But it is so wide open. There's so many teams that have a shot here. I mean, I like my dark horses, Shelton. I think they can make a run here. But I'm going to go with Ellington. I think they're going to find a way. I don't know how, Curtis, but I think they find a way, and I think will be in the final.
Yeah, I like it, Joe. All right, let's slide over to Huh?
I'm glad somebody does.
I will see. I mean, the teams you're picking, maybe they like it, maybe they don't like it. All right, let's zoom in on the D3 girls here. I like this bracket a lot. The Ansonia region, we're calling it. Ansonia is the top seed here, and they will play the winner of Guilford and Plainville. One of the teams here you have to look out for is Hill House. Hill House was 15-7, but really played some tight games in the SEC this year. Played Sacred Heart really well in the SEC tournament. Then right below them is Hand, who is another team, the 8 seed. So in the 8 and 9 seed, it's going to be a possible Hill House Hand game. I can see either one of those teams getting through, and I can see either one of those teams really challenging Ansonia here at the top of that bracket when you get into that quarterfinal game. Torrington's a team you need to watch. Torrington, you don't usually think about them, but again, 15-7. But when you look at the draw they have here, they could slip through here. Ellington is tough. Ellington's going to be a hard team to go on the road and beat, but they're not unbeatable. They are a very solid team now, the NCCC. So I'll see if Torrington or Ellington can slide through there. Bridgeport Central back in the tournament for the first time in 15 years. They're going to Ellington. Great job by the Hilltoppers. All 3 Bridgeport public schools are back in the state tournament for the first time in known memory. Joe, I went through all the old brackets. I could not find it. I was going back to the ones that are written down in like ink. Someone wrote with a pen and they took a picture
in pencil, Scott.
And pencil. Those are on the CIAC site if you go deep enough. Yes, and I could not find a year where all 3 girls teams were in the tournament. I'm sure it happened maybe at some point. I don't know when. St. Joe, New Canaan, that's an interesting first round matchup because I'm going to talk about St. Joe here in 1 second, but New Canaan has shown that they can hang with some of these better teams in the FCIAC. I think St. Joe's is going to get through here. I think they'll end up playing Seymour. So that second round matchup, St. Joseph Seymour, could determine a lot of how this tournament goes, Joe. Danny, slide me. Danny, can I slide back up for 1 second and just talk about St. Joe's for one more sec? Is that possible? Did I screw everything up here? I went over my 2 minutes. Let me just say this about St. Joe's. St. Joe's is in Division 3 here. Of all the decisions the CIAC made, I like the overall new format of these playoffs. I like the Division 1. I like how they set up Division 2. St. Joseph's does not belong in Division 3. They have been in Double L the last 2 seasons, moved up, because they were in a state final in 2023, and they were a runner-up, a semifinalist the year before that. They were semifinalists in 2023 and a finalist in 22 in Class Double L. They play in the FCIAC. They are a school of choice. They should have at least been in Division 2, probably been up in Division 1. Having said that, I do like Seymour to get through here. All right, Danny, we can slide down now that I've said my piece about St. Joseph's being in Division 3. All right, the Coventry region here. Coventry will play the winner of Brookfield and Crosby. Coventry was in a state final last year. I like them to slide through here. Barlow is a team that I would watch out for, though, that Coventry may end up playing in a quarterfinal. Mia Tartaglia is one of the better players in the state. I don't know if she can overcome that, deep Coventry sophomore lineup, but I still like Coventry to move through, but watch out for Barlow in this field. The other team I want to watch out for here is Lewis Mills coming up. They play Weathersfield Open. They would play either Wilby or Avon after that. I kind of like Lewis Mills' chances with Layla Lubinikic sliding through and coming up through this region and eventually playing Suffield. I think Suffield could be challenged by Colby in the second round. Again, we have a school of choice here. Colby hasn't had the success that St. Joe's has had, but they are still down here in D3. Having said that, I still like Suffield to move through here and eventually play Lewis Mills as they move through the bracket. So I think I'll have Coventry and Suffield moving through. I'm going to take a look at my final 4 here for this bracket. Danny's doing the best he can to keep up with me. I'm a little erratic on the Division 3. I apologize, Danny. All right, my final 4 in Division 3. I like Hand. Like I said, Hand's going to play Hill House, and then one of them's going to have to play the top seed. I like Hand to move through there. Sony would be a fantastic story to make a Final Four, but I kind of like Hand here. I like Seymour to come out and play the other Final Four, and then I like Coventry and Lewis Mills to come out of the bottom. The championship game that I have is Coventry beating Seymour in the Division III championship, which would be back-to-back championships for Coventry. All right, Joe. Division II boys.
Yes.
We're getting to the good stuff.
We're getting to the good stuff. The only division that had playdowns or play-ins, and they were last night, and Foreign went up to Bristol Eastern and beat them. And your reward is you get Windsor. So congratulations. And then you have, and then Wilbercross lost to Hand, and Hand goes and plays Trumbull. So Windsor, Windsor, interestingly enough, I'm quite surprised they lost to East Hartford. I mean, kudos to East Hartford, and then we'll get to them in a minute. But Windsor, again, a lot of people feel they should be in Division I, but they are in 2. They have 2 losses by a combined 5 points, so we'll see how they rebound. They are the favorite, obviously, here. Xavier has had a good history of facing Windsor and beating them in the state tournament. Again, that was years ago. It's an intriguing first-round matchup with Fairfield Ward, who's been up and down in the FCIAC. I think Xavier could get through there, and then we'll see. Again, can Xavier go up and beat Windsor? Ludlow, an FCIAC semifinalist. They're a dangerous team. Cheney Tech was a Division IV finalist a couple of years ago. They got to go to Hall, who's beaten Northwest Catholic this year. The 8-9 game, Ludlow Hall, very intriguing if seedings hold. New Canaan, another team that's been up and down. I mean, they face NFA, which made it to the ECC Division I final. So that's a dangerous matchup for New Canaan, but a long, long road trip for NFA. Platt has had a good year, and they were quarterfinalists last year in this division. But, they lost to Sulington in the first round of the CCC tournament. Very surprised by that. I'm very curious how they react. I think they can make a run here. And it's very possible they could see Maloney in this half of the bracket. But Maloney's got to beat West Hill first, and they got Fitch, who's the EC Division I champion. And that's a very dangerous matchup as well. But Fitch obviously is playing well. In the bottom half of the bracket, we mentioned Trumbull. Trumbull is a semifinalist from last year. The 2 seed now. They were the 20 seed last year. Can they make another run? You would think they would. Glastonbury, dangerous. Fairfield Prep playing very well right now. The 10 seed after hanging with Northern West Haven for 2.5 quarters or so. But very interesting first round matchup against 23 seed Crosby. But now there's your Division III champion the last 2 years. Now they're in Division II. They're the 7 seed. They're an SWC tournament finalist. Can they make a run? They've proven they've done it before. Hill House, an 11 seed. That's what happens when you lose to West Haven twice and you lose to Notre Dame West Haven twice and you get ready and you lose to Prep once. And, again, I don't want to see Hill House in my bracket as an 11 seed. Very dangerous. Newington should watch out with Josiah Sims, who's on the 1,000 points, close to 1,000 rebounds. Newington and Connor, a CCC matchup. And then you got, who I like, Kobe Cathedral, kind of hanging around one of those high seeds, 19. I like them to go to Bloomfield and win. And then there's East Hartford. And East Hartford is very dangerous, and they're very confident right now. And they can win this thing. And very, very possible the Hornets. Again, an all-CCC matchup of 2 public schools is pretty impressive. So a lot of times it's been East Catholic. A lot of times it's been Northwest Catholic. Northwest was the defending champion. So, again, kudos to East Hartford. In this division, I like my Final Four, Windsor. I'm going to stick with Platt. Hopefully they're listening and get it going. I'm going to go with Fairfield Prep, the hot hand, and I'm going with East Hartford. Dark horse, obviously, is the 10 seed Fairfield Prep. And I just can't pick against Windsor. I'm sorry. Windsor over East Hartford.
Hill House, dangerous, Joe.
Very dangerous. I think they're going to beat Newington. I mean, I just don't know if they could beat East Hartford. So
yeah, East Hartford's playing well. When you're riding that high of the conference tournament, you never know how you're going to come out.
Right.
All right, let's move on to the girls' Division II. This is one of my favorite brackets. I think this is wide open. I think we have 3 top 10 teams in this field. There's a bunch of teams that can make runs through here. We also have, because of the draw and because of the team's records, we have a quarterfinal matchup that is worthy of a championship, and it's in this bracket. Rocky Hill is the top seed here. They're going to play the winner of Windsor and New London. I think they will get through that. I think Rocky Hill is a very strong team. Now, down at the bottom, you have Sheehan, not bottom, but right below that, you have Sheehan and Notre Dame Prep. You would have the SEC runner-up playing against the SWC champion. Notre Dame's a very young team. I don't know if they can get through Sheehan. So I like Sheehan to move on there and eventually play Rocky Hill. And this is where I'm talking about a quarterfinal game that could have been the championship. If Rocky Hill and Sheehan are on opposite sides of the bracket, there's a good chance that I pick them to play in Mohegan Sun against each other. Who wins this game? I don't know. Either of these teams could win. You can flip a coin between them. They're both really good. They're both worthy of the top 10. They're both worthy of being state champions. I can't say that enough about a quarterfinal matchup in here. I'm going to take Sheehan to move through. I'm sure Rocky Hill is going to be mad, but just use that as motivation, Rocky Hill. It doesn't mean that I don't like you, but I just think that matchup is incredible for a quarterfinal. Stanford and Amity is a rematch from a couple years ago in Double L. Ledyard with Maggie Dykes is a strong team if they can move through there. I'd be interested to see if Ledyard can beat one of those two teams, either Amity or Stanford, whoever wins that game. You have Bethel with Danielle Scopino, with Vivian Stewart, the center there. She's a very good player. And Enfield, who's played great in the CCC this year. I think that if you look at Enfield and who they've played and who they've lost to, they're one of the teams that has just gone completely under the radar the entire season. They're getting some votes in the poll, but not a ton. And I think that they could not easily, but they could make a run here. All right, let's slide down. We got the Trumbull region. Trumbull obviously dealing with the news that Michaela Diamond, her season's over with a knee injury. That really hurts the Eagles. They're still a good team. They're still a well-coached team, but when you lose that core center piece of everything, that is very, very tough for them. Michaela Diamond, we wish her the best on her recovery. West Haven is here with Noel Lawrence. I think she's one of the best players in the state. I kind of like them to get past Trumbull there as the 15 seed, although Newtown is going to give West Haven trouble. Jeremy O'Connell is going to have Newtown ready, and they're going to give West Haven trouble. But if West Haven get through that, I like them to also get through Trumbull there. Woodstock made a run to the ECC final. They could eventually play Bristol Central in that second round, which is a really good matchup also. Now, I love Bristol Central. I've been talking about them all year. Nicole Reamer is one of the best players in the state. Camaria Bowens is one of the best teams in the state. If they can put it together and make a run here, they lost to Enfield by 1 point in the CCC quarterfinals. If they can make a run here, I really like Bristol Central to kind of come through here. South Windsor's been a team that's knocked off a few teams this year. Paparog's young. They have a couple experienced players. We'll see. I think South Windsor can get through that. North Haven, Leah Calderon and Belcher and others, I like them to move through here. Ward Ridgefield, classic FCIAC battle. That game's going to be 37-36 probably with whoever wins that one. And then Staples, the FCIAC runner-up, they've had a fantastic year with Chloe Smith and Freya Harvey and everyone else. And Tommy Sparks has done a great job with that program. I like Staples too here. So for my final four in Division II, I just want to make sure I have it right. I had Sheehan getting through Rocky Hill. I have Enfield making the final four. I have Bristol Central making the final four and Staples making the final four. And for the championship game, I have Sheehan winning back-to-back state championships, defeating Bristol Central in the final. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Put it on the bulletin board, though, Rocky Hill. I understand. And then believe me, I went back and forth in that game a million times, Joe. And sometimes these games, they're almost impossible to pick, right?
They stare back at you after a while, and it just becomes like you just gotta get off and pick, and then hope.
Yeah, as they say, yeah. Get off the pot, you know. All right, Joe. What now? We are going to go Division I. Let's do the Division I girls first here.
Okay.
Let's see what we got for the Division I girls. Obviously, they only have 16 teams, so there's no first round, as the boys have done. And we should say there are 3 teams here: St. Paul, Conard, and Glastonbury, which would not have qualified for the other state tournaments based on their records. But because they set the field before the tournament, as the boys do, these 16 teams are all in. In general, this is a pretty strong field. Southington-Hamden is a great first-round matchup. I can see either of those teams making a run through this tournament. Now, they'd have to play New Britain in the second round. New Britain's obviously had a great year. They're a very young team. Southington was in this spot last year. Howie Hewitt's done a fantastic job getting them back into this position where I think they can make another run. Nobody saw this coming from Southington. And then Hamden, Amanda Forcucci always has them playing great. Greenwich is a team with Zuri Faison, Maddie Utzinger. Greenwich can definitely make a run. Their starting five is as good as anyone's starting five, short of Northwest Catholic. The problem will be is if they get into any foul trouble, Greenwich is not very deep. If they don't get into foul trouble, watch out because the Cardinals can beat anybody. Zuri Faison's a matchup nightmare inside. They have shooters on the outside. They're a very strong team. East Catholic could play Greenwich in the quarterfinals here, and you could have Zuri Faison and Uriela Brokwa matching up. That would be a fantastic quarterfinal matchup here, and I would like the winner of that to keep moving on here. So, and then Mercy is up there too. We would play Sacred Heart. Now, the top of that bracket, you have Northwest Catholic, Mercy, Sacred Heart, top four teams in our poll, all on the same side of the bracket. We thought this might happen. We knew when Sacred Heart lost those three games, and they didn't lose them. They lost them from their schedule. They had to count them as scrimmages. They played less games. They end up as the 5 seed. They end up as the same side as Northwest Catholic. I believe that Sacred Heart and Northwest Catholic are the two best teams in the state. They're not going to play for a state championship. They're probably going to play in the semis, but look out because Mercy's here, who already beat Sacred Heart once this year. So would I be surprised if Mercy makes it to that semifinal? No, I wouldn't be surprised. That really opens things up on the bottom of that bracket for New Britain and Greenwich and East Catholic to make a run without those two teams in their way. We'll see what happens. But my final four pick for Division One is going to be Northwest Catholic, Sacred Heart, Southington to get back to the Final Four in Greenwich. And in the championship, I like Northwest Catholic to defeat Greenwich. All right, Joe, Division One boys, what do we got?
Well, as you mentioned, and this has been the format for several years now for Division One, 16-team format, you would obviously Manchester sticks out 0-20. You're a Division II champion last year. They should probably not be in the field, as should Danbury not be in the field. They wouldn't be at 3-17 in any other division. So the first round matchups, it kind of leaves a lot to be desired. But one that stands out, honestly, is your defending two-time champion Notre Dame West Haven with Abdu Torre. They host Stanford and the 7-footer Jordan Sutton from Stanford. Very intriguing. Stanford got to the semifinals of the FCIAC tournament, having won at Trumbull. So you just never know which team is going to show up, but that should be interesting at Alumni Hall. This is basically your keep away from Notre Dame bracket. So you want to be in the top half of the bracket. Staples, undefeated. Your FCIAC, two-time FCIAC champion. Face Manchester, beat them. And you got New London and Holy Cross. New London was in the finals last year in Division II. 8-9 game. It's like the NCAA tournament. You don't know. Holy Cross kind of was down this year. Interesting. Notre Dame Prep. Notre Dame Prep is one of the hottest teams in the state right now. And they're going to handle New Britain, and Notre Dame Prep can they've lost to Notre Dame West Haven 4 straight years in this tournament. Now they're on the other side of the bracket. The only way they see them is in Mohegan Sun. Northwest Catholic is the usual. They'll handle Greenwich, and then you got to possibly host Notre Dame Prep or neutral site game, depending on what the CIAC determines. And then we have Notre Dame and Stanford. We discussed East Catholic. It's very possible East Catholic, you beat St. Bernard, who was a finalist in this division the last 2 years, but just got into the tournament in any bracket with 8 wins. East Catholic could host Notre Dame and West Haven at the Eagles Nest. And very interesting situation if that does happen, or will it be a neutral site? And then in the bottom half of the bracket, if memory serves, the 2 seed was the 6. Can you put it back up, Danny? Sorry. I ran out of time. Yeah, West Haven. West Haven, obviously, they've lost to them 3 straight times. A very possibility they would meet in the semifinals for a 4th time. Richfield just losing in last night's FCIAC final. They host Sullyton in a great 7-10 matchup. It's a very Division II is deeper. There's no debating that. Is it better? No. I still think the top teams here are still the best teams in the state. They're the teams that are ranked. My Final Four, I went with Staples. I went with Notre Dame Prep, West Haven, Notre Dame. They'll meet for the fourth time. And I am not picking against Abdu Torre. Notre Dame West Haven beats Notre Dame Prep. Notre Dame West Haven's best beats your best, people. The only difference is if you can catch them off guard, if you can get people in foul trouble, if you can make shots, and if you can get a lead, you can win. But they can't play their best game, and you got to figure out how to stop number 23. So it's going to be hard to beat them. It's not impossible. But again, they play their best, they win, and they cut the nets down. So
I'd be really interested to see that Staples Notre Dame Prep game. That would be a semi, Joe, or no?
That would be a semi, yeah. You got to give it to Staples. A couple of years ago, they petitioned to be up. They've refused to go down. They want to be in that division.
They belong there. They belong in that division.
Listen, you go through the FCIAC. You undefeated, you're really good. And they scrimmaged. They did scrimmage Notre Dame, so it's not like they're going to be surprised by anything. And Dave Gulcher's a heck of a coach, and East Catholic and Notre Dame have scrimmaged. So there's not a lot of secrets. I mean, at this point, there's so much film on everybody. I mean, again, I've heard it from too many people that you want to be on the opposite side of the bracket in Notre Dame. You might not see them until the Mohegan. So we'll see.
And also, Coach Goldshore, big fan of the podcast, Joe. He came up last night before the game and said he loves the podcast, loves to listen. And I'm sure he loves to listen when you're 23-0, and we always say is great things about your team.
Yeah, I'm sure all the people we didn't pick will be loving it too. So, but it's going to be a very exciting tournament. I imagine, just from what they've done, they'll put it Sunday night because they did Saturday night last year. I hope they do it Saturday night and just keep it there, depending on who's in it. But it'd be a great story if Staples makes it there. But, Notre Dame Prep's never been in the final either because they keep on in Notre Dame West Haven. So, and nobody's talking about Ridgefield. At least we're not. East Catholic, again, Notre Dame West Haven's never beaten East Catholic either. He's never beaten Luke Riley. So we'll see. There's a lot of intrigue here. This is no gimme layup. Just make sure that it doesn't.
Well, the fact that Notre Dame's got to go on the road too makes it more interesting, right? They're not playing in their gym every time.
It is possible. It's up to the discretion of the tournament director, who's Dave Schultz, who's the FCIAC commissioner, will he move the games to a neutral site. Now you look at it two ways. Is it fair to the teams who are the lower seed that they don't get to host? But the other side of it is there's so much interest in these games. It's really hard to put in a 800-seat arena. If you got a bigger arena, you go play it there.
Yeah, when you get to the quarters, especially those boys games, people want to see these games. People want to see these teams play. All right, let's recap all of our picks here, Joe, and let everyone know who we picked for all these tournament championships here. Here are my girls' picks. First in Division 5, we got Lakeview, Thomaston, Haddam, Killingworth. Lakeview beating Thomaston. I got Morgan over Stonington in Division 4, Coventry over Seymour in Division 3, Sheehan over Bristol Central in Division 2, and Northwest Catholic over Greenwich to win their 4th straight state championship. The Lions to win the newly formed Division 1 championship. All right, Joe, we got the boys' side.
Division 5, we have Stafford. Division 4, we have Woodland. Division 3, I picked Ellington. All one seeds. What a shock. In Division 2, Windsor. In Division 1, I picked the 1-6 seed, Notre Dame West Haven. So, yeah. But, it's not going to end up like that. Some dark horse is going to get through. We just don't know where it's going to be. And so we'll see. It's not going to be this chalky. I can promise you that. It never is. But you got to pick the upsets where you figure you can get them. And, oh, well.
All right, Joe, those are our picks for the tournament. As always, go on GametimeCT.com, and Joe and I have written up outlooks for every single bracket. All right, Joe, we're running a little long here, but I can't miss the mailbag just because I want to see the graphics. So mailbag time! All right, Danny, what's our mailbag question this week? Which team do you think had the greatest title run in recent memory? Oh, that's a good one. I like that. Joe, you got one, or you want me to go first? You want to go first?
No, I'll go first.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you consider 16 years recent, but I mean, I was looking through it and trying to think what defines a great run. To me, Sheehan 2010. Now, again, they were a 20-something seed and they went to Division IV final last year. But as Class M, they were the 8th seed in Class M in 2010. They knocked off the top seed Nanawag in the quarterfinals. They beat number 4 Cromwell in the semis. And then they upset Bloomfield, number 3. Bloomfield was a tremendous team back then in the CCC. And I thought Sheehan had absolutely no chance to win. And I think they scored like the first 13 or 15 points of the game. And it kind of reminded me of a Hoosiers moment. But, and they just found a way to win. They won 72-61. It was their first state championship. And I guess Coach Joe Caetano, his son Phil, was the point guard of that team. He's now an associate coach at the University of St. Louis, which is one of the better teams in the country. And I just remember Joe told his team that if they won a state championship, he'd shave his mustache. He shaved his mustache, and he's never grown it back. So, it's a great story. It's a great story that they're able to find a way. And Sheehan would from 2010 would be my choice.
All right, the girls' side, I'm going to go a little more recent. E.O. Smith, when they ran through Class L in 2023, they beat a really good St. Joe's team. They beat an excellent Holy Cross team with Maya Zagajanini in the semifinals. And then they went to the championship and beat Claudia Schneider and Pomperog. The E.O. Smith girls gave me a hard time the entire time, came up to me with a phone after the game and asked me why I didn't pick them. It was all in good fun, and those girls were awesome. Bella Mallory and crew. So E.O. Smith 2023, I think, was the best run that I've seen through a tournament in recent years. All right, Joe, there's a few games to watch. We want to watch all these games in the state tournament, but I think that there's a few that stand out to us too. Let's look at the ones on the girls' side real fast that stand out to us. Division I, second round, Southington Hamden. I think the winner of this game can make a run in this tournament, but I don't know who's going to win that game. It's really up in the air between those two teams and two really great coaches. And then in Division II, Amity and Stanford, like I said, they played this game a couple years ago. Amity won. They've got Nina Nardecchia. Diane Burns and Stanford do a great job down there. And then the third game is the Division II game between Ward and Ridgefield. Like I said, this is just going to be a war. Rob Colonnet, Dave Danko, two of the greatest coaches ever in the FCIAC are going to be going at it. Those are the three games I like to look at early, but there's so many good ones. It's hard to pick. Joe, what 3 or 4 games stood out to you on the boys' side?
Well, the intriguing one in Division I would be Stanford again going to Torrey. And you got the 7-footer versus the All-American. I mean, that's kind of like the side. They challenge Stanford at the rim. Can Stanford run up and down with them because Notre Dame's going to run at home? That's my one in Division I. And then Ridgefield hosting Sulington. Sulington beats Platt. Ridgefield is one of the toughest places, if not the toughest place to win. That would be there. I mentioned this St. Joseph, and they've been on a struggle bus this year. But again, it's a rivalry. It's at Shelton. Name value is good here, so I like name value. Career Bridgeport Central, New Haven versus Elm City versus the Park City. Winner gets Ellington. And a lot of people go, "Oh, Ellington doesn't play. They don't play anybody." Well, they've only won 46 games in a row at one point.
That's it.
And again, Bridgeport Central, Ellington would be a rematch, same round, same seeds, Division IV last year. So I would be very excited to see that one. Fairfield Ward at Xavier, 16-17 games, always interesting in the first round. And then I told you I think Colby Cathedral and Bloomfield will be exciting, and I think Colby Cathedral will win at Bloomfield on Friday.
It's the best time of year, Joe. It's the best time of year. State tournament basketball. There is nothing better. We will be back with you right before the state finals. So leading in that week, heading into the state championships, Joe and I will be back to break down all what happened and then what we think is going to happen in the state tournament finals. And then we'll be at Mohegan Sun for the finals on the 21st and 22nd, which is our favorite weekend of the year. I know Joe and I just absolutely love to be there. But in the meantime, follow along on GametimeCT.com for all of our stories. We're going to have updates on the city tournament every single night. We have scoreboards that are updated every single night. Follow us along on Instagram, where we're going to have highlights of the games that we attend. And as always, like and subscribe to this YouTube channel so that we can keep doing this podcast for all you great basketball fans in Connecticut. All right, for Joe, for producer Danny, who did a phenomenal job tonight with all these graphics, I'm Scott. We'll see you next week on Courtside with GametimeCT.